welcome back to We Move Forward Together. I'm your host, Steve Yusko, and this is a podcast developed by the Dominican Sisters of Amityville, where we focus in on their charism, what they're all about, by featuring stories of different sisters and different associates of the order. And I can tell you something, I've found joy in doing this podcast and really meeting some wonderful people. So we're going to draw back the curtain, so to speak, and we're going to welcome a wonderful guest, Sister Judy Flanagan. Sister, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So good to have you. All right, Sister, we met earlier, and I was so happy to do so. I found more about your career. We're going to focus on the different energy centers, we call them, which are social justice, community, spirituality, and ecology. And I think the thing that will jump out at us today is community. I'll leave that as a bit of a mystery. So, Sister, tell me about your background. I understand you moved from New York out west, and tell me what it was like to be a little girl and your dreams of what you wanted to do in life.
Well, I was born in Queens Village, not too far away from Long Island. And when I was 3 years old, my father's job brought us to Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I ended up having a completely different life as a child, anyway, than my mother had imagined, because we had lived in the Jamaica, Queens Village area, both my father's family and my mother's. And my mother imagined that I would go to school there in Jamaica, that I would graduate from Mary Lou's Academy in Jamaica and all of that. But instead, I ended up in a little Catholic school in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which was, at that time, Tulsa was 0.5% Catholic. And the state of Oklahoma was Tulsa was 2% Catholic, and the state was 0.5% Catholic. So instead of growing up with a church on every corner and all that, like all my cousins were doing, I grew up in a very different environment. A lot of religious people around me, but mostly not Catholics. And my sister and I went to a small Catholic school in Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I think at that time, when I was just like 8 or 9 years old, the seeds of my vocation were planted. But you might say they didn't really take, but they were planted because I greatly admired my 4th grade teacher. And that person, I idolized her. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to be just like Sister Suzanne. And if I decide to have kids, because I would like to have a family, even though I was only 9, I thought, well, I'll name them. I'll have twins, I decided, and they'll be Suzanne and Susanna. So I greatly admired Sister Suzanne, but she was ahead of her time. She was a Cincinnati Dominican from Wisconsin. And one of the religion lessons that she taught us when I was in the 4th grade, she said, if Jesus were around and he saw the way things are, he would have to talk to the people in charge of the city. At that time, African-American people had to sit in the back of the bus in Tulsa. This is 1950s, all right? And she said, when you get on a bus, you should really sit in the back, because that's not right. And I did that when I was 9 years old. And it was that those sisters were something, had a tremendous impact on my life. And it created a problem on the bus when I did that. And it created a problem for my mother. I learned the people that told her, she didn't know how to control me and all of that. And I realized at a very young age that if you stick up for what you believe, you could suffer for it, but so could the people you love. I learned that young. But at any rate, that was the seeds of my vocation. And then it went in and out. When we moved to New York, I think, as I had said this morning, the Catholic schools were all full. So I went to Seaford Senior High School. We had moved to Seaford, Long Island. I graduated from there. I then went to Malloy Catholic College for Women. And after I graduated from Malloy, I taught for a year in Massapequa High School. I was an English teacher. But this thought of being a sister now was coming more and more. So I decided, why don't I try it? So I did. And I ended up entering in 1968, which was the beginning of Vatican II, and lots of turmoil within the community.
Lots.
That's when I entered, yeah.
Yeah, lots of change. So just in listening to your story, you spent time in Tulsa. Everyone knows the history of the Tulsa massacre out there and what happened on early with that.
White people and black, the water fountains, like in the airport, would say colored and white. and the
Wow.
bathrooms would be colored women, colored men, white men. It was much distinction about race. So I saw that early. And I remember too, we were sitting, my family went to church one Sunday, and it was just my sister and me, two kids.
Hmm.
So I'm close in age. And we were eating like probably like pancakes or something like for a Sunday breakfast. And a family just like us, only they were black, came into the restaurant, a father and mother and two girls. And and they looked like they were coming from church, which is what we had. And they were stared out of the restaurant. And I
Wow.
remember I was really young when I saw that. And you don't need anybody to tell you that something is wrong.
Right.
I knew that was wrong. So I did see those types of things as a kid. It left an impression on me.
Yeah, it's really amazing. I spoke about early in the introduction of, taking the veil away. And some of my stereotypical impressions of sisters were, oh, they must have come from a very religious family and this and that. And I'm finding that God draws straight with a crooked stick,
That's right.
you know,
That's right. For sure.
having been in public school and getting the influence of a Dominican early on. And that's
Hmm.
what I'm going to just turn to the audience and ask them. We love when people comment and tell us about any of your experiences with the Dominican order and the Dominican sisters in your life. I'd like to know about it, and we answer everyone as best we can. So
Uh,
now you're back in New York, and Dad was in the airline business, correct? And that's why you're out in Tulsa. So you come back, and then you don't go back to Queens or out in Seaford at this time. Tell me about what drew you closer to that seed growing into a sprout of, hey, I think I'd like to be a Dominican sister.
I can't even tell you what it was that
Okay.
drew me. It just was there, a feeling that I wanted to devote my life, and I couldn't even explain it, because also I love little kids. I was a very popular babysitter, when I was a teenager. And so I would have liked that. So that was that struggle was inside of me. But finally, the thought of being a sister persisted. And I thought to myself, well, just do it. Because I was afraid, now they say people are afraid of commitment. So I would have been one of those people, that was thinking, oh, what if I go and then I don't do it? Oh, how embarrassing would that be? Meanwhile, like 9 million people left the comment, but I thought, oh, if I couldn't do it, that would be a failure somehow. In my own mind, I thought that.
Sure.
So
Sure.
that made me hesitate to even try. But then finally I said, oh, what the heck? Just try. Just go and see. You don't have to just try it. So that's what I said to myself. And so I came. And when I entered, it was right with Vatican II, really. It was in the midst of Vatican II. It had kicked off and religious life was changing by the second. And
Mm.
like I had said, when I entered, there were 1,200 Amityville Dominicans about. And
Wow.
that year, 150 sisters left the congregation. So for a person that's just starting out, wow, that's a lot. And several of the younger people that were here at the Mother House at the time were coming and going, much more than ever had happened in the past. So that's hard to that's hard to see. But
Oh, sure.
times that's the times that I was made for. That's when I entered, and I've been around for 58 years as a sister, or
Uh,
57. I don't even know, but a long time. So I think I'm here. So
You're here to stay.
yes, I think so, and I think what drew me was the dedication to ministry.
Hmm.
I wanted to be a teacher, and I wanted to be a teacher in a poor place, and that's where I wanted to devote my life to. And I didn't even know anything about living community, or I mean, I knew the sisters lived together, but that didn't mean anything to me. But
Mhm.
it's in living community, I realized over time that the people that I lived with shaped me, and
Right.
I very much so influenced me and shaped me in ways I was not aware of, and also introduced me to so many different personalities. so many when I first went, when my first place was St. Luke's in Whitestone, there were 22 sisters in the house. My
Wow.
second place was Bethany Convent in Jamaica. There were 30 sisters in the house. And in those days, sisters were like moving in and out. So 4 people would move out and 5 would move in. So even when I lived with 30, it was really more than that. And then all these people had friends. So all I had to do was have a cup of tea and they just came in and out and in and out, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed meeting all those people. And of course, it's not always, you always meet somebody that you don't get along with or that you
Of
find
course.
hard. That happens every place. But the overall impact on my life was very positive.
Now, I want to touch on the community aspect, particularly nowadays with social media. And we touched on this earlier this morning. We're on social media, but we're less social. We have a generation of kids, young adults, who were quarantined, who weren't building the social skills. They were isolated and they're struggling. So my sense is there's a yearning for community. And when people go into the vowed life or, they're starting to be a deacon or a priest, they say, and it's the first time I heard this term, oh, you're in formation. Not like the
Yeah.
military where you're lined up, maybe sometimes, yes. But also, what's so striking to me, particularly about your story, was the impact of living in community. Can you expand upon that a little bit more? Because, there are people out there who want to live alone and
Mhm.
I'm the boss of me. And now you're in with a large group, which I think the benefit is the networking that you gals do as well.
Well, I think community doesn't necessarily mean that you live. I happened initially to have lived with a lot of people. There are
Okay.
many sisters in my congregation who live alone. They're still living community. There's many ways to live community. And, and, even now, people who are really into the earth, we're in communion with the trees and with everything around us. So living community, one way is to live in a group with a group of people. It's not the only way to live
Okay.
community. It's evolving and changing how it's done by sisters and I guess probably by people in general. It's amazing that it does change. I guess just the way family life isn't the same now as it was when I was a kid growing up. Now there's many more working mothers and life is just different. And so a religious life reflects that as well. But I think that the impact that community had on me, part of it was that it was such a surprise to me that I didn't realize its importance until I was in the middle of it. I didn't realize the importance of my congregation. I didn't realize the importance of our spirit, like our part of our charism is joy and hope. And those words resonate with me. And even the word truth, the St. Dominic, and, and that word truth, sometimes it doesn't have the meaning to me. I used to think truth was like, you're right, I'm right, you're wrong, or something like that.
Right.
And I remember we had this wonderful sister who taught theology at Malloy. And then she came to the novitiate when I was out here in Amityville becoming a sister. And she said, she's an expert on St. Thomas Aquinas and all of these saints.
Hmm.
But what she said that I held on to was what she said about being true. To be true is to be real. So if you're yourself, if you're really the real you, that you're living truth. That's the truth. That's who you are. That hit me that she didn't put it in those words. She put it in a different way. But that's the message I got from her. And I thought about that on and off through the years, like to being true to yourself, being being true is so important. And the people around you can either help that happen or stifle who
Mm.
you really are. So it's important when you choose your community and you choose your friends that they bring out the real you, the true you. And I think that's everybody's deepest vocation. We're just called to be ourselves and we don't exactly know why. And I don't think we even know what it is that's the real purpose of our particular life. Like I know I'm doing my ministry and all that, but it's deeper than that. Everything's deeper than we see. And God has a reason for every single one of us, and that's the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what I think. That's the
A
opinion.
couple things that kind of jumped out at me about your story, about church. Some people will look negatively on the church or an order, I'll be honest with you. Okay, you're
Yeah.
joining. Man, there's going to be a lot of rules you're going to have to follow,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're going to
Yeah.
have to get information and follow what's going on. And yet, I think when we realize that we have a loving God, like you said, who wants us to be all that we can be,
Mm.
right? And have that confidence in transparency and self to move forward. But I got to ask you this, because as things are evolving, in your order it evolved, right? It started as a cloistered order, I believe, at one point,
Yes. Mm.
and
Yeah.
and then as needs changed, the congregation, I would say, evolved, just like the needs now on Long Island are changing, and the
Right.
congregation is evolving. That's why we're doing We Move Forward Together. Tell me
Right.
about those changes. And I'm so interested in your experience of coming in right, I guess, right at Vatican II, right?
Yeah.
And what was it like? There had to be sisters saying, "What the heck's going on? The world's upside down." Tell me your
Yes.
experience.
Yes. I can remember as a postulant, um, uh, there would be meetings of the community. There were hundreds of sisters would be coming to the meetings, and our job would be like to serve the coffee, something like that. So
Right.
I would be talking to the sisters, and I didn't know most of the sisters that came in to these meetings and everything because there were hundreds of us. But this one, sisters would take me to the side and say, "Why are you doing this? If I were deciding now we have the Peace Corps. This was the 60s, right? You have
Right.
the Peace Corps. You have other outlets to try to help people. Why would you choose religious life now?"
Mm,
Wow. And the truth is I had thought about the Peace Corps and doing something, that type of thing before I entered. But I even though I couldn't put a word to it, I didn't even have the concept of community in my head. I knew I wanted more than that. and but those sisters were struggling. And it was obvious to me that the people that you would expect to know everything, they were struggling too because the changes just hit hard. And when sisters left, then they left their friends behind, or staying here. That was very hard for the person
sure.
that was still here to lose a friend because a friend is worth her weight in gold. To have that person that you could really talk to, and a true friend is such an important part of life. And sisters were losing their friends when they Although, I gotta say, not really. In the end, the connection stayed, and
Sure.
because there was a time before my time when if a sister left, it, like, happened in the dark of the night, and they were gone and all mysterious, but in our time, people left during the day, we saw them go, we said goodbye. It was difficult, but the truth is many of those relationships continue. We have many former members who are still friends and connected with the sisters, and I went to the wake of the husband of a woman who was a former member and had
Mhm.
taught in the school where I had been. And when I got to the wake, there was another woman there that I was introduced to that had left, got married, everything. But then she said to me, "Oh, yes," she says, "but in one way, I never left." And she filled up. So there is something about being connected to the congregation that stays with people, whether they stay in the congregation or not. There's a bond very often, most of the time. It's
Well,
beautiful.
you know what
It's
I'm hearing
beautiful.
also from the story that you're telling me is, when at least for me, maybe it's for some people in the audience, when somebody comes across with a certainty about things, it's a little off-putting to me sometimes. And
Mm.
sometimes you need to hear those other voices that are validating the questions in your own heart, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I should think more deeply about this and the road that I'm on. Not that naysayers should fill every thought of ours.
Mhm.
But I also want to touch on other thing on children, and I want to touch on your clowning around. We'll leave that as a little bit of a mystery. But what was intriguing about our conversation this morning was, how do we talk to children about spirituality and about God? And maybe you could bring me back to that conversation for our audience, because I found it fascinating about, I guess, the theology of talking to children.
Talking to kids, well, at one point, when I taught for many years, and I was a high school teacher or a junior high school teacher, And at one point, I became the assistant principal in St. Thomas the Apostle School in Woodhaven. And the school had two buildings, kindergarten to 4 and 5 to 8. And the assistant principal's office and life was in the K to 4 building. And I had always taught older kids. So I said to one of the teachers, I like little kids and I have nieces and nephews and the whole thing. I said, but I never talked to so many at once. I don't know how to talk to like a whole room full of little kids. And she said, don't worry about that. If you don't know what to say to the children, don't say anything. She said, listen. And she
Mhm.
said, if you keep listening, you'll learn fast what to say and how to talk to them. She was absolutely right. It didn't take me long to become comfortable with the children and all of that. And I had mentioned to you this morning, of course, it's Catholic school, and I think it was probably Advent where we lit a candle in the classroom, lit Advent wreath. And I was walking down the hallway, passing the first grade classroom. They had a lovely teacher, and she was very experienced, and they were all like milling around the room, taking off their coats, taking out their books, getting ready for the day. They were very relaxed, and they were only 6 years old, so they weren't speeding around.
Mhm.
And a voice came over the PA, and it was another child who was the head of the student council, and he was going to lead the school in prayer for this Advent wreath. Well, that came and it went, and the little kids was still unpacking their bags. So I said to myself, well, someday I want to do something meaningful with this age group. I can't figure that out today, but that's in my head. So I asked the congregation if I could study religious studies, and I went to Fordham to do so. And I thought I would bring that back with me to the school and, try to make meaningful experiences for the younger children. So I was in whatever class I was in, the religious imagination of the child. And that was the name of a book that I read in the class. The Religious Imagination of the Child was written by a woman, Sophia Cavatelli, who taught with the Montessori method 2 to 4 year old children. She started in Rome, but she went all through the world, and they were mostly poor, but also wealthy. And the things that she learned about the children was they responded to the parables. And the parables represent the ordinary person, and the parables have a surprise twist that most of us don't quite catch because Jesus spoke in a different culture. But the parables are really everyday people. And the parable that most children respond to is the Good Shepherd. And then I learned as I was going along, for a young child, this like amazed me. If you go to Mass, usually it'll start out somewheres along asking for forgiveness for our sins early on, Lord have mercy, and it moves up to the consecration. And what I learned in reading this book and in my own experience, very young children, the I'm sorry part, they're not ready for that yet. And they go to the mystery. It's just amazing. And that had the story of the little child taking these wooden, like good shepherds, like an old Christmas set on a table and just bringing all the animals together, bringing everybody together, putting Jesus in the middle. And then the child will say something like, Jesus, you were good. And the author points out that's how that child's praying. They praise God, the little ones, and they, as far as Mass goes, of course, they don't understand it. But if there's anything in it, they're drawn to the deepest mystery first. That blew me away.
Right.
And I just sense that it's true. And in my own personal life, while I was taking this course and learning about the parables, my friend said, oh, let's make this weekend retreat clowning for Jesus. So I thought, oh, okay, I'll do that. All right. So I did that. Well, the spirituality of clowning is to be ordinary person. The clown is ordinary. Everybody else in the circus is gifted. And in the Middle Ages and the day of the one ring circus, the clown would run ahead, dressed very crazily so that people would notice them because they're a messenger. And the message is that the circus is coming. The talented people are on their way. I'm the messenger. And that's what Jesus was, a messenger, but at the same time, Jesus was the message. And that even with a clown, you kind of get, they symbolize the circus, but they're the least talented person. It's the other people that he's really introducing. So that struck me. And the parallel between the clowning and the parables struck me. So now I'm still the assistant principal with these little kids. So I said to the two kindergarten teachers, were young ladies, very nice. So I said, listen, if I make you your lunch for a couple of days, would you
Right.
have lunch with me? I'll make it for you. Okay. I can make a tuna fish sandwich with the best of them. I'd like to make you your lunch and I'd like to talk to you for an hour about what I know about the spirituality of parables. And then I'd like to talk to you about what I know about the spirituality of clowning. because I'd like to bring those things together with the young children. And then what I'd like you to do after we talk is use your education in how to teach really small children and figure out how to get this into the kids' heads. We picked the parable of the treasure and the pearl. I didn't want to do the good shepherd because that's been done. So we did the treasure and the pearl. And
Oh,
that's how I had studied that parable and I had talked to them about that. And it's joy at the sudden discovery of conditional love. That's what the theme of that is. I said, how do you get that into a 5-year-old? So
right.
I that so anyway, they got treasure boxes and they did this. They did this now. They got treasure boxes and they asked the children their treasures, and the kids said, "My doll, my truck," all that kind of stuff. The
Right.
teachers accepted it, and then through every day praying and talking a little, the children started to say things. Oh yes, my mother, my father, my friend, my house. These things are treasures, and eventually Jesus, oh yes, he's a treasure too. And then we had treasure day and I wrote a clown skit and we married the parable and the clowns finding the treasure on the beach, and we gave each child a pearl on a little seashell and all of that. And that's what I did there, to try to make it come alive, to make Christ come alive to those children. And it also was a wonderful experience with the teachers, too. It was wonderful having those conversations with those two young women. They ate it up, what I had
Right.
to say, what I had learned. And so that was a wonderful experience. And then I was able to take that with me to other schools and do it again, when I was principal in Jamaica, so that
As
kind
I'm
of stuff.
listening to that story, and to the adults that are listening to this, my daughter brought this up. How do you, the one thing, and I say this almost every episode, when I go to the mother house and I meet the different Dominican sisters, there's a palpable joy that you
Oh,
exude. It's just there, right? And
mhm.
I think a lot of it begins with counting our blessings, counting our treasures, right?
Yeah.
And it may be as simple as, hey, thank you, God, for waking me up and giving me breath this morning, to the
Mhm,
beautiful day, to the rainy day, to my spouse, my partner, my this, my that.
mhm.
And coming from a point of gratitude is a great way to start the day. So that's the
Yes.
treasure for
Mm.
that. And I'm going to show, I took some film of your treasure chest on
Oh,
wheels. So tell me
okay,
about that, and I'll show the people.
okay,
I'll show the
sure.
people your treasure.
Okay, well, when I was in St. Thomas when became a clown, and I did other things with the children. I mean, we didn't do it every day, but I did a few clowning experiences with the kids, and we had parades and all of this. So I said to the secretary who became my friend, I said, "Gee, I wish I had a little red wagon." I meant like a little one, and if I had that, I'd be able to put all my props in the wagon, and then my hands would be free when we're doing things. So when I was leaving the school, the Mothers Club, in elementary school, the Mothers Club asked the secretary, well, what do you think would be a good present for her? So she said, a little red wagon. Now, I had told my friend Kathy that I would like a red wagon because she was always going to flea markets, and I thought she'd just see a little one that I could buy. But instead, they bought me a great big one. They painted it. They painted little dancing bears on it and all this kind of thing. So that's what I used when I clowned with the children at later dates. And I could also give the kids rides in the wagon and all of that. I have many happy memories. It's in a way it's hard to own a wagon because where do you put it? But anyway, I have one
Right.
and I like it.
You had told me a story earlier, and it's an amazing story of a 9-year-old girl
Oh,
with the gift of empathy.
mm.
Tell me about her.
Okay. Again, that happened in St. Thomas's. I was just walking down the hall saying hello, and the classrooms all had two doorways, one in the front and one in the back. So I waved in the front, and then I'm walking, and this little girl who's sitting in the back of the room says, "I have to talk to you." So I said, "Oh, really? Okay." So I said, "Okay." So she says to me, in those days, Cabbage Patch dolls were very popular with little girls.
Sure.
So she said, "I have a Cabbage Patch doll at home, and my grandmother could make a St. Thomas uniform for it, and then we could raffle it off." I said, "Oh, yeah?" how come we would do that? She said, because, and I can't remember now what happened, but it was something like a flood or an earthquake. Some tragedy happened in Pakistan or someplace in the world that
Okay.
far away. And this little girl wanted to have a raffle and then use the money and send the money where it would help these people. So I said to her, well, that's a nice idea. It's very generous of you. I said, but the thing is, first of all, to ask me to do that for you right now, we're going to have communion in about a week. And right now, I'm up to my eyeballs. I know you're 9 and you don't understand, but grown-ups get nervous about stupid stuff. And I'm in the process of doing that. So I'm not going to be any good until we get this ceremony over with and all that. And then she looks at me. I said, but it is a nice idea. I said, but another problem we have is that the parents are getting tired of us asking for money all the time. I just was at a meeting last night with Sister Rosalita, who was the principal, and the parents were saying that every time they turn around, we're asking for money. And I said, so, if we just listen to them say that, it's enough that they pay the tuition and all of that. So we have to stop asking for every little thing. I said, so the kid's just looking at me. So, because I'm not making any sense to her, and I'm realizing I'm not making sense. So,
Right.
yeah, so then, and I said, and also, honey, even though we're trying not to collect money, we are collecting money because they're trying to fix the Statue of Liberty. And we have a collection going on right now for the Statue of Liberty. So the little girl she looks at me. Her name is Emily. She goes, Sister Judy, the Statue of Liberty is a thing. I'm talking about people.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I never forgot that. I never forgot that. And some of the sisters already have heard that story because I told it we had a luncheon once and I told that story. And don't you know, the mother of that little girl was in the audience. She was a friend of one of our associate members. So I saw the mother again. So that child now is a grown woman, probably in her 50s, but when she was only 9 years old, I was so touched by her, so it's been a great life.
You know what? I see now that you relate again that story to me, I see the thread of when you were a little girl on that bus who had empathy for what was going around you, and you may have seen a little bit of yourself in her.
I
And
don't know.
that kind of brings us full circle when you're surrounded by people that can help you through formation, okay, and everybody may not believe it, but we're all on a spiritual journey one way or another. And
Mhm.
that's what I can only testify to what I realized with the Dominican sisters is my thought patterns are changing. And I think about what you guys do. And it's not all public. I'll just say that. There's a lot of
Mhm.
social justice work going on that we do behind the scenes, that you do behind the scenes. But let me tell you, it's good trouble. And I'm going to
Mm.
talk to the audience and say, if you're looking for fine examples of good trouble, of people who are connected through ecology, community, definitely spirituality, and social justice. And you say to yourself, hey, you know what Steve and Judy are talking about, that kind of sparks interest in my wheelhouse. I want you to put something in the comments. And if you want us to reach out to you, I'm going to connect you with some really wonderful people that you'll be impressed. If you're impressed just half of the way I'm impressed, uh, you'll have more treasure in your treasure chest, so to
Then you
speak.
know.
So, Sister Judy, you're on the leadership committee. Tell
Yes.
me about what's involved with that, and where do you see things evolving with your congregation?
Well, let me see. The leadership team consists of 5 people. We have a prioress and 4 counselors. This is my second time around, and 4 out of the 5 of us, it's our second time around. And then Laura, our youngest member, is also a member of the leadership team. And we are elected to the position. And I suppose we each have our different responsibilities. Like I'm connected with the communications office. I'm connected with Dominican Village Board. I'm connected with the housing for our sisters, and we each are connected to different things.
Okay.
I think probably the part that is the deepest part is that we're canonicals to various sisters, so that each sister, like we're 204 people, so each of us would be a superior for like so many people, I guess you would say.
Okay.
That is an honor to walk with the sisters in their lives. So that's, as a team, we meet a lot. Religious life is in a lot of change, just like it was when I entered, only
Mm.
it's a different set of problems, but it's the same thing. Something's always is always something, and now our median age is something like 82 or 83. So and there are very few vocations. So that's major. And then that's what we have to deal with. And so we have many conversations. It's serious stuff. But at the same time, we have our ministry and we have one another. It- uh, that's it. We have a lot of planning to do, and there's a lot to pray about.
Mhm. You know, one of the other sisters said this to me in an interview. She goes, "We're kind of approaching democratizing our charisms." Now, charisms can be a churchy word, but it's really what defines a Dominican or a Franciscan or a Jesuit,
Mhm.
and how they work in those energy centers,
Yeah.
I'll say.
Mhm.
And what's really, really neat is the things that I've learned is you don't need to be in the vowed life to teach somebody English, to
Right.
feed somebody, to visit the imprisoned or the marginalized, okay, to smile and put a hand out to the homeless. And that's what you're being invited to here on We Move Forward Together, as
Yeah.
well as you're not walking alone. And that's why we want to connect with people.
Mhm.
Our
Yeah.
goal here is that we're reaching out to people of goodwill to connect you with people of goodwill. Does that make sense?
Sure it does. Yes.
Yeah. So even though things are evolving, right?
Mm.
We're getting to meet great people. We're getting to spread the word here through social media.
Right.
We're doing our own little stories of people,
Right.
and you can make connection. I think you said it this morning. I'm an ordinary gal. And I'm a regular guy, but we're called to do some great things in God's work, right?
I think the longer you're alive, the more you realize being an ordinary person is a wonderful thing. It's great to be alive, and to if you have your health and all of that, you're really lucky. It's a good thing to be a regular person.
Amen to that. Well, Sister Judy, it was really my pleasure, and I think the audience's pleasure to hear just a little bit of your story. We're going to have you back on. There's so much more to talk about.
Thank you.
And thank you for all the good trouble that you've done. And you're a class clown, but in the good sense of the title, I would say.
Mm, Thank you.
All right.
Okay. Thank you very much.
We'll see you next time. Thank you, sister, and everybody. Thanks for joining us. And check out the next video or the playlist. There are a lot of great stories to check out. All right. Be well, everyone.
Bye bye. Thanks a lot. It was good to meet you.
Yep.